The audition, the Grand Chamber of the Galactic Federation, was older than human civilization. Ambassador Marcus Chen stood at the center of the amphitheater, feeling the weight of 10,000 years of galactic history pressing down on him. The chamber was a masterpiece of architectural impossibility, crystalline walls that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, floors that rippled with light from stars long dead, and overhead, the slow rotation of the Federation seal, a geometric mandala representing the 47 member species. 47 species who were all currently staring at him. Ambassador Chen, Counselor Vraltesh began, her voice a harmonic chord that translated through his neural implant as cool disdain. The Tharnai counselor was a being of flowing mercury and crystalline thought, beautiful and utterly alien. Humanity petitions for membership in the Galactic Federation. You have submitted the required documentation. You have met the minimum technological thresholds. You have even, somewhat surprisingly, passed the preliminary compatibility assessments. A ripple of what Chen's implant translated as polite amusement passed through the council chamber. However, Vraltesh continued, there remain concerns. Chen had prepared for this. 6 months of briefings, cultural training, diplomatic simulations. He knew the Federation prized stability, longevity of culture, and what they called civilizational maturity. Humanity, barely 2 centuries out from Earth and only 5 decades into FTL travel, was the new kid trying to sit at the adults' table. We understand the Federation's caution, Chen replied, keeping his voice steady. Humanity is young by your standards, but we bring fresh perspectives, innovative approaches. Impulsiveness, interrupted Counselor Jakal, a Vortan whose species had been spacefaring for 12,000 years. Their translation came through as dripping condescension. Your species has been in space for mere decades, yet you've already fought 3 wars among yourselves in that time. Minor territorial disputes, Chen said quickly. All resolved through diplomacy. You consume resources at rates that would drain a solar system in centuries rather than millennia, added Counselor Severith. A being composed of what looked like living moss. Your lifespans barely exceed a single solar cycle. Your cultures fragment and reform with bewildering speed. You have 23 major languages on your homeworld alone. Diversity of thought. Is chaos given form, Vraltesh concluded. Ambassador Chen, the Federation has maintained peace and prosperity across 700 solar systems for 9,000 years. We have done this through careful deliberation, through the refinement of protocols tested across millennia, through the wisdom of species who have learned patience. She paused, and Chen felt his stomach tighten. Humanity exhibits none of these qualities. The chamber fell silent. Chen could feel his heart pounding, that primitive, impulsive human response that probably wasn't helping his case. However, Vraltesh said, and something shifted in her harmonic tone, we are not without curiosity. The Federation was founded on the principle that all sapient species deserve consideration. Counselor Jakal leaned forward, their crystalline face refracting light in what Chen's implant couldn't quite translate. We propose a test. Here it comes, Chen thought. He'd been warned this might happen. Provisional membership, probationary status, some carefully controlled scenario where humanity could prove itself under Federation supervision. The fringe territories, Jakal said. Chen blinked. I'm sorry, the what? A hollow projection materialized in the center of the chamber, a 3-dimensional star map that made Chen's breath catch. It showed a ragged edge of the Federation's territory, a sprawling region of perhaps 60 star systems connected by a tangle of neglected hyperspace routes. The fringe, Vraltesh explained, represents our least successful expansion. 17 species have attempted to administer these territories over the past 4,000 years. All have failed. The colonies are dying, the infrastructure is collapsing, and the population has devolved into what can only be described as organized chaos. You want us to fix it? Chen asked, unable to keep the disbelief from his voice. We want you to try, Severith said, and Chen could have sworn there was amusement in the translation. The fringe is beyond saving. Every protocol we have attempted has failed. The populations are too diverse, too fragmented, too resistant to proper governance. It has become a drain on Federation resources, a monument to the limits of civilized administration. Give humanity full administrative authority over the fringe territories for 5 solar cycles, Jakal said. If you can bring even a fraction of stability to that region, if you can, demonstrate that your fresh perspectives and innovative approaches are anything more than euphemisms for reckless improvisation, then we will reconsider your petition for membership. Chen stared at the map, his mind racing. 60 systems, dying colonies, infrastructure collapse, 4,000 years of Federation failure. This wasn't a test. This was a trap, a way to humiliate humanity, to let them fail spectacularly on a galactic stage, and then point to the ruins as proof that humans weren't ready for the big leagues. But as he looked at the projection, at the abandoned stations, the struggling colonies, the forgotten peoples in those forgotten systems, something else stirred in his chest. A challenge. "We accept," Chen said. The chamber erupted in what his implant translated as surprised approval, mocking laughter, and in one case, genuine shock. Vraltesh's form rippled with something that might have been satisfaction. "Excellent. You will have full authority to govern the fringe as you see fit, with minimal Federation interference. We will, of course, monitor your progress with great interest." "Of course," Chen replied dryly. "One more thing, Ambassador," Shakal added. "The fringe populations have been informed that new administrators are arriving. They are not optimistic. The last 3 species to attempt governance abandoned them within a single cycle. I trust humanity will not repeat that pattern?" Chen met the counselor's alien gaze steadily. "Counselor, humanity doesn't know how to quit. It's one of our most annoying qualities." "We shall see," Vraltesh said. "Your transport to Fringe Command Station Terminus leaves in 3 cycles. I suggest you use that time to prepare." The council session ended, the hollow projection dissolved, and Chen found himself being escorted from the chamber by a pair of silent Federation drones. As soon as he was clear of the diplomatic zone, he activated his comm. "Sarah," he said, "you're not going to believe what I just agreed to." Admiral Sarah Okonkwo's response was immediate, her Nigerian accent sharp with suspicion. "Marcus, what did you do?" "I got us the fringe territories." A long pause. "The fringe? The fringe that's been failing for 4,000 years? That fringe?" "That's the one." Another pause, longer this time. Then, unexpectedly, Okonkwo laughed, a rich, delighted sound that made Chen grin despite everything. "Well," she said, "at least it won't be boring. How much time do we have?" 3 days to assemble a team and get to the edge of known space." 3 days. 60 dying systems, 4 millennia of other people's failures. Okonkwo's tone shifted, becoming all business. "I'll start pulling together the best chaos coordinators in the fleet. If they want to see what humans can do when things are falling apart, let's show them." Chen stepped out into the Federation Plaza, looking up at the alien sky where ships from 100 worlds moved in perfect, orderly formation. "Sarah," he said quietly, "what if we can't pull this off?" "Then we fail," Okonkwo replied simply. "But we fail doing it our way, not theirs. Now get moving, Ambassador. We've got work to do." Chen closed the comm and started walking toward the human embassy, his mind already racing with plans, contingencies, and the growing realization that he'd just committed humanity to the most spectacular gamble in its history. Behind him, in the Grand Chamber, Councillor Zakal turned to Vraltesh. "They will fail within a cycle," Zakal said confidently. "Perhaps," Vraltesh replied, her form rippling with an emotion her species rarely displayed. "Curiosity, but it will be interesting to watch." The edge of everything Fringe Command Station. Terminus looked like someone had welded together 3 different shipwrecks and called it architecture. Admiral Sarah Okonkwo stood in the observation deck of the UNSS Perseverance, studying the massive orbital station through the viewport. It was a patchwork nightmare. Sections from at least 7 different species construction styles bolted together with what looked like improvised docking clamps. Entire wings were dark, lifeless. Others flickered with sporadic power. The station tumbled slowly in its orbit above a gas giant that swirled with perpetual storms, and Sarah could see debris fields scattered around it like broken teeth. "Well," said Commander Jackson Park, her chief logistics officer, "at least our expectations were appropriately low." "That's the spirit," Sarah replied dryly. Behind her, the bridge crew of the Perseverance worked in efficient silence. The ship was a Titan-class heavy cruiser, one of humanity's finest, but Sarah had specifically requested it be accompanied by something the Federation had never seen before. A fleet train, not warships. Not peacekeepers, construction ships, medical frigates, agricultural processors, communication relay vessels, supply haulers, even two of the massive Ark-class colony ships, each carrying 15,000 volunteers and enough equipment to bootstrap a civilization. The Federation had given humanity authority over the fringe. Sarah intended to use every bit of it. Admiral, her communications officer, called out, "We're being hailed by Terminus Station, audio only." The translator, struggling with it, put it through. The comm crackled to life, and Sarah heard a voice that sounded like it was being filtered through broken glass, shouting over what might have been alarms, explosions, or just really bad interference. Identified vessel. "This is Terminus Station Authority, or what's left of it, and I'm telling you right now that if you're the new Federation administrators, you can turn your shiny ships around." And a loud bang. More shouting in an alien language. "Because we don't need another species showing up, making promises, and then abandoning us when they realize this place is—" "This is Admiral Sarah Okonkwo of the United Nations Space Service," Sarah interrupted calmly. "We're not turning around. We're here to help. May I ask who I'm speaking with?" A pause. Then more cautiously, "You're human?" "That's right. The species that just applied to the Federation? The ones the Council thinks are too primitive?" "Also correct." Another pause, longer this time. Sarah heard muffled conversation in the background. "This is Station Administrator Kelvix," the voice finally said, now translated more smoothly by her implant, formerly of the Tharnai Diplomatic Corps, currently of nowhere in particular. "And I'm telling you what I told the last 3 species. Terminus is a disaster. We've got 47 different species living here. 16 functional power cores out of 72, life support that fails every other cycle, and a population that's about 2 bad decisions away from complete anarchy." "Sounds like a Tuesday back home," Commander Park muttered. Sarah shot him a look but keyed the comm. "Administrator Kelvix, I'd like to dock and meet with you in person. We've brought supplies, technical crews, and an entire fleet dedicated to stabilization and reconstruction." "You brought what?" "We don't believe in showing up empty-handed. Permission to dock?" The silence stretched long enough that Sarah wondered if they'd lost the connection. Then, "Docking Bay 7. It's the only one with reliable atmospheric seals. But don't say I didn't warn you, Admiral. This place breaks people, breaks species. The Vorton tried for 20 years, the Sevnai for 50. Everyone eventually realizes the fringe isn't worth saving and leaves." "Good thing we're stubborn," Sarah replied. "See you in 30 minutes. She cut the connection and turned to her crew. "Commander Park, assemble the landing team. Engineers, medical staff, and anyone with experience in disaster relief. Lieutenant Chen," she nodded to Marcus's younger brother, who'd volunteered as her diplomatic liaison, "you're with me." "Ma'am," James Chen said, snapping to attention with a grin that reminded her painfully of his older brother. "And someone get me a full structural scan of that station," Sarah added. "If we're going to fix it, I need to know exactly how broken it is." Docking Bay 7 was exactly as advertised, barely functional. Sarah's boots clanged on metal grating that had been welded over holes in the deck. The atmospheric seal held, but she could hear it straining. Emergency lighting cast everything in a sickly yellow glow, and the air tasted of recycled desperation. A figure approached through the gloom, tall, bipedal, with the flowing mercury-like form of a Tharnai. But where Counselor Vraltesh had been pristine and radiant, this individual looked worn, their surface marked with what might have been scars or stress fractures. "Admiral Okonkwo," Kelvix said, their voice carrying harmonics of exhaustion. "Welcome to the end of the galaxy's patience." Sarah extended her hand, a human gesture she'd learned most species found baffling but intriguing. Kelvix stared at it for a moment, then carefully formed a pseudopod to shake it. "Thank you for having us," Sarah said. "I know you've been through this before with other species. I want you to know up front we're not them." "That's what they all say." "Fair enough. Then let me show you instead of telling you." Sarah gestured to Commander Park, who stepped forward with a datapad. "We've brought 12 engineering teams, medical facilities capable of handling 47 different biologies, enough food synthesizers to feed 500,000 beings, and," she paused for effect, "the schematics and materials to repair or replace every critical system on this station." Kelvix's form rippled. Surprise, Sarah's implant translated. That's impossible. Do you have any idea how much that would cost?" The Federation calculated it would take 200 cycles and more resources than the Federation calculated using Federation methods, Sarah interrupted gently. We work differently. We don't wait for perfect solutions. We implement good enough ones and iterate. We don't follow thousand-year-old protocols. We improvise. And we don't abandon projects just because they're hard. Bold words like, let me prove them. Give me 72 hours. 3 of your solar cycles. My teams will restore life support to the entire station, bring 20 additional power cores online, and patch every atmospheric seal. Free of charge, no strings attached. Kelvik stared at her, their mercury form absolutely still. Why? Because that's what we do, Sarah said simply. Because those people out there deserve better than slow collapse. And because we were told this was impossible, which makes us want to do it even more. A sound emerged from Kelvik's that Sarah's implant struggled to translate, something between a laugh and a sob. You humans are either the most admirable species I've ever met, or the most delusional, Kelvik said. But you know what? After 40 years of watching this place die piece by piece, I'll take delusional hope over efficient despair. They extended a pseudopod toward one of the station's main corridors. Come, I'll show you what you're really dealing with. And if you still want to help after that, well, maybe you humans really are as crazy as the council thinks. The tour was worse than Sarah had expected, and she'd expected a disaster. Entire sections of the station had been sealed off after catastrophic failures. The medical bay was treating patients from 17 different species with equipment designed for 5. The hydroponics levels, which should have provided food for the station, were operating at 20% capacity. The refugee quarters were overcrowded by a factor of 3, with beings sleeping in corridors, storage bays, and anywhere else they could find space. But what struck Sarah most was the people. Every species she passed looked at her with the same expression, a mixture of hope and bitter expectation of disappointment. They'd seen administrators come and go. They'd heard promises before. They'd learned not to believe. How many beings are on this station? Sarah asked as they reached what had once been a command center, and now looked like a jury-rigged control room held together with hope and salvaged wire. Approximately 230,000, Kelvik's replied. Spread across 47 species, 8 major language groups, and more cultural complexities than I can count. The Federation protocols for administration require separate governance structures for each species, formal communication channels, standardized systems. It's impossible to implement here. The diversity is too great, the infrastructure too damaged, the resources too limited. Or, Lieutenant Chen interjected, it's exactly the kind of environment where humans thrive. Kelvik's turned their attention to him. Explain. James Chen pulled up a holographic display from his tablet. Back on Earth we have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. We're at our best when things are broken and we have to fix them with whatever's at hand. You say the diversity is too great? We'll find common ground. You say the infrastructure is too damaged? We'll patch it and build better. You say resources are too limited? Watch us stretch them. You make it sound simple, Kelvik said. It's not, Sarah admitted. It's going to be messy, chaotic, and nothing will go according to plan. But it'll work because we'll make it work. Now, can you get me in touch with representatives from the major population groups? I want to talk to them directly, not through Federation protocols. That's highly irregular. Good. Irregular is our specialty. Kelvik studied her for a long moment. Then their form rippled with what might have been the first genuine hope Sarah had seen from them. Admiral, you're either going to revolutionize the fringe or crash and burn spectacularly. Either way, it's going to be fascinating to watch. They moved toward a comm panel. I'll start making calls. But I warn you, these beings have been disappointed too many times. They won't make this easy. Sarah smiled, the expression fierce and determined. We wouldn't want it any other way. Behind her, Commander Park leaned close and whispered, Ma'am, I hope you know what you're doing. Not even a little bit, Sarah whispered back. But we'll figure it out as we go, just like always.